This episode is made possible by NetSuite by Oracle and Brex, the AI-powered spend platform.
Hi, this is Joe Wolk, CFO of Johnson & Johnson, and you're listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast with Jack Sweeney.
This is episode 892.
I tend to look at, and this is more of my potential operational background, I look at inside out. And so what most finance team members might look at ARR and they look at net retention, they look at gross retention. Those to me are the scoreboard though. And so I spend time spinning up and looking at the input. And the input is your adoption healthy? Is your engagement healthy within your platform? Are the customers doing the right things that you want them to do within the space? And then do you feel like their time to value, and it's a continuous time to value, are they consistently getting value out of what you're offering? And to me, if they are doing that really, really well, then the metrics usually show up in a great way.
Hi, this is Jack bringing you a bonus replay holiday episode. This episode features our talk from last spring with Jason Quinn, CFO of Vendr, one of our more popular episodes for the 2023 season. We hope you're enjoying the holiday season and thinking of all those things you're most thankful for. Like you, perhaps, there are many that come to mind for us, not least of which is counting you among our listeners. So thank you for listening. And we look forward to serving you in 2024, and we wish you a safe and happy new year. And so here's our bonus replay. Happy holidays. When Jason Quinn arrived in Europe back in 2008, he was the youngest of 5 American expats being deployed by digital disruptor Vistaprint of Boston, Mass. For the next 5 years, Quinn would be involved in a string of business acquisitions that would grow the digital printer's European revenues from 0 to more than $500 million annually. Based in Barcelona, Quinn recalls spending roughly 3 weeks out of every month traveling to other parts of Europe, touring the operations of different businesses as he and other executives evaluated whether there was a solid business case for acquiring a company. We'll hear that story and much more after this. 37,025-1. These are the 3 numbers to remember to get the visibility and control you need to make the right business decisions instantly. 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down expenses. 1. Because your business is one of a kind, you should get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system and with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need, all in one place. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free, at netsuite.com/KPI. That's netsuite.com/KPI. Hello, we're speaking with Jason Quinn, CFO of Vendr. Jason, welcome.
Thank you, Jack. I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with you today.
So we always begin with having you take a look back for us, Jason, and try and identify those experiences that you feel really prepared you to advance into a finance leadership role. What would come to mind for you?
Yeah, let me just back up and say what I'm sort of known for is a little bit of operational excellence, building companies through turbulent times. And that's sort of how I've kind of cut my teeth. You don't sort of wake up and say, that's how you're going to do it. But I sort of have a couple experiences that sort of shine from that perspective. Um, so really where I started cutting my teeth was with Vistaprint, which later incorporated as Simpress. So Vistaprint, what they did was they disrupted a lot of the printing market where you used to walk into a kiosk as a small business. You can say, I would like to have these promotional products. And what Vistaprint figured out through a template approach of going online, linking to a back end, they were able to operate and have a service for the SMB market that was much, much less expensive towards providing great promotional marketing materials for these small businesses and just have it online. And so I went out to Europe. I was one of 5 expats. I was the youngest. I became part of the executive team, not in the sense of, I would say, professional skill, but sort of belief in myself and belief in the company's vision, and had some finance skills at that point in time. But I was definitely the youngest on the team. And I got to cut my teeth from building that company in Europe from about zero to over 500 million or so. And we ended up buying a lot of companies thereafter that became adjacencies. But what I ended up learning there was about how to build a company from scratch, funded by a parent. And I believe that like flatter is better. So we had a lot of great ICs. We were able to hire some management, but that was really an efficient way to grow. Leaner is better. Focus on the few things that you believe are really going to move the needle and do those really, really well across the division or the company. And then I got exposure to how to build a company from ground up, all the way from pre-sales to post-sales, including manufacturing, logistics, as well as what you see today in your go-to-market motion from a sales and marketing end on a B2C or even B2B platform. I had the luxury of seeing both the executive team as well as middle management sort of perform. I was more in middle management or even lower IC level and got to rise through that times, but I got to see both. So I understood how the executive team was operating and the decisions they were trying to make and how that trickled down within the operation. That was a huge opportunity for me. The last thing was just how to bring a US company to EMEA and all the do's and don'ts that sort of come with that. And I just leave you with 2 things. One of the do's for me is like, if you're going to go international, you just got to go all in. You got to be prepared to really make the investments to win in the local markets, because you're versing competition that is their main market. And the other one of the don'ts is, I think from a U.S. perspective, like don't neglect the cultural norms. It is really important to make sure that you get those cultural norms correct and it really resonates with the people of those various countries, and even within the countries, those various reasons. It's really important for growth. So that's sort of how I cut my operational teeth a bit.
Again, you made quite an investment over time. It's 7 years or at Vista really, and then another year so 8 years combined with Simpress Vistaprint operations. And I think you came out, I would have said, sort of the corporate development realm. You can correct me, but you're an FP&A expert, and then you come out the other end as sort of this seasoned operations finance executive. But can you help us better how am I doing? Am I close to?
Yeah, I think you analyzed it very well. For me, it was I came in through the corporate development arm, and that was around 2008, 2007, where we created this nice big strategy. I could help the executive team think through elements at which we could sort of grow our business. And in 2008, kind of the world went in sort of a downturn, and we sort of said, well, we'll take what's working well, and we're going to go across the globe by doing that. And there wasn't necessarily a need for strategy teams at that point in time. You really just had to get operational because we were getting lean. And so I put up my hand and said, I'm happy to do this. I have some finance skill. That was enough skill to go with the other operators out into the MEA region. And that's sort of how I was able to, and I just loved it. And so I just started to learn every piece of every job. And that's what I would advise for finance people. If you want to be a great finance business partner and be strategic, learn how everyone else thinks, learn how their roles work. And then you bring the expertise of the finance lens, but through how they operate. So that's what I basically was trying to do over that 7 or 8 year period. And how I think about things is when I join something, you kind of have to build it. It takes a long time to build great companies, I would say. And then go find another one. But I usually try to pick a winner and stick to it for the long haul. And then at some point, maybe shortly after a decade or so, you're like, okay, well, that's a really good run, and you're going to go try something new.
Can I ask just regarding M&A, and you said there were several acquisitions made over that period. I think there were quite a few. And can you enlighten us a little bit as to how your role might have evolved over time? Initially, you might have been someone out there just doing the due diligence, trying to get to the bottom of a potential business to buy. Can you give us a flavor as to how your involvement there might have evolved or changed? Yeah.
As the company was expanding, one of the things you do is, as a finance lead, you kind of are a jack of all trade within various things that are required, and become a little bit of a business owner, a little bit of a finance person. As we scaled, my role, we set up a corporate development team within our Paris main office, and they would handle most of the M&A on a go-forward basis. So in the beginning, it was looking for no-brainer adjacencies that also had a cultural fit, an operational fit, and we would sort of start to buy them up. And as we got momentum and they worked, we set up a corporate development team that would do that on more of a regular basis and be their main job. And my plug-in to that was because I had so much more operational knowledge and also cultural understanding of what was happening on a day-to-day basis within the European business. When they brought something to the table through the pipeline, I would vet it I would vet the business case essentially from ability to execute it, and then just from a cultural perspective. I would do that as long with the other executives in the European region.
So along with members of the team, you would often land in the offices of potential acquisition partners, where you would get a tour of the business, or you'd be led to a conference room. You'd sit down with some of their operations people. Can you just give us an insight into, and I imagine this is happening in different spots across Europe, or no? Is it?
Yeah. So during that 5-year stint when I was out in Europe, I spent 3 weeks out of each month on a plane most of the time. 1 week a month would be in the Barcelona office. That's where our headquarters were. So it was a pretty intense time frame, but I did that. It was young and was able to really learn about a business. On the diligence side, pre-corporate development teams, we would fly over with the president at the time. We'd be going through diligence. There would be a lot of setup for those meetings, but you would go down the operations, you would tour the operations, you get an aspect about what each department's doing and the overall business case. It really is executive alignment around, if these two companies get together, what would they be able to create? Can it be 1 + 1 is 3? That's sort of what you're generally looking for. What that means is that if you combine the two companies, can you actually generate more than those single companies could as a standalone? As we grew our corporate development team, they would do the initial diligence. They would do the initial price gathering in sort of more of a handshake view. Then we would go into a deeper diligence, and that's when the operating teams would get involved. And that's when I would fly over, and whether that be, we did a lot in Germany and other places within the European region. But that's what I would do, is spend a couple of days with the leadership team and go deep on the operations and validate what the initial business case was.
When you're that far along, is it uncommon that a deal doesn't come to be, or usually when you're out there, as you just described, it's more than likely going to happen, or no?
I would say it's sort of a coin flip at that point in time. What you generally have is enough belief that you want to go further. And what I've seen is a lot of deals kind of unravel a little bit when you look at the cultural norms, when you look under the covers and see how their technology is built, how it might integrate with your technology. With Vistaprint, it had manufacturing and logistics overlay. There's customer files that you need to overlay. And you start to really understand what those synergies or desynergies might be. And that's usually the breaking point, whether you want to move forward or not. In my experience, it's been more of a coin flip. Having said that, the ones that have gone through, the ones that have, what I would say is continue to invest in the fundamentals when you're building companies together, if they're both at a certain scale. Those fundamentals, all the acquisitions we did, that in my experience at Vistaprint, where when they had strong financial fundamentals, they did really well. If we feel like we're overpaying a little bit from a fundamental standpoint, we kind of stretch the synergies a little bit to make the business case work. Those tended not to really pay off from a financial perspective.
Well, thank you for that extra detail. Very interesting. I want to let you lead us on because I think your next chapter is also very interesting. So we'll let you take us where you will.
Yeah. So my next chapter was DraftKings, and that was taking a lot of the operational things that I learned at Vistaprint and combining that with really the opportunity to learn the private capital markets. And so where I was doing at DraftKings was it was more of a startup with, there's no parent company. We sort of had to go out and raise capital. We had to fund the operation, make sure the capital was generally pretty efficient. And at that same time, we were dealing in a regulatory environment that was sort of pretty volatile from both a state level and a federal level. And then the competitive landscape was also pretty difficult because we had about 19 different sites that started before DraftKings. And like one of the things that we thought is we had the better strategy, we could build a better product. And it was kind of put your head down and beat out the competition. The elements that really came to life there was some early acquisitions that we did to tuck in some of bringing those companies together and sort of leapfrogging a lot of the competition and really catch it. And we really, what DraftKings was able to do over that time period was become the number 2 player in what was the daily fantasy market at that time, which their first product that they launched. I believe where DraftKings is still probably in that number 1 or number 2, depending on what market you're looking at. As we continue that momentum, and they've continued to really perform there. But the basis of which also a lot of people left Vistaprint and came to DraftKings, some of the basis was operational rigor, analytics, and the ability to build pretty good technology that was able to scale quite rapidly. So that time was pretty intense because you'd wake up sometimes in the morning, and I wake up very early in the morning, which I might talk about a little bit later. You'd find out a state was shut down and 10% of your revenues were gone for a short period of time. Or you'd wake up and you'd realize that the NCAA might want to have a handshake deal where we say, we're not going to operate in college sports for the moment because how do we make money off of college players where they're not being paid, for example? So there was a lot of volatility in the revenue line, which also makes the finances job really challenging when you're trying to manage the capital markets, you're trying to manage your investors, your board, and what's in the cash on your balance sheet, as well as you're trying to deploy that capital and look for very specific signals on unit economics that's saying that this capital is really working while you're having all that volatility around. And so what I really learned is how to manage in that turbulent time the various stakeholders, whether that's internal and building a culture with obviously the executive team there that's about winning and being obsessed over the product really and the experience that our customers and users was having. And the other aspect is how to manage boards and executives and sometimes even government regulators through this sort of like transition that the US basically went through, which is unregulated sort of black market gaming to regulated gaming market.
So are you at that stage? It seems like you could have gone into larger corporate development jobs for giant companies and, just be paid awfully well to do it. Or you could stay inside mid-sized firms and take on more senior finance roles with the idea sort of coming front and center, someday I'll be a CFO. Is that what's happening here? Again, you could have gone the other corporate development route and just be attached to really big deals for giant enterprises.
Yeah. With DraftKings, I sort of figured out a little bit of what I was, and what I should be, and what my sweet spot probably is. And with DraftKings, they did a SPAC, which is merging with another company that's already public, and then bringing them that company becomes the public company. It was one of the first to do that. So right as we filed the S4, so I prepared the entire company. We're on board a new CFO from Bain Capital. He's a great guy named Jason as well. We're all Jasons, but Jason Park, good mentor. And what I figured out is I love the build stage. Some people like the maybe various stages of companies that could be more, I'm going to maintain, I'm going to grow, but maybe through acquisition after I've already kind of dominated and conquered my market. What I figured out is I really like finding founders that have a vision, that have something that's really tangible, that's probably a big enough opportunity where you can make some mistakes along the way. And I like combining with them, going out. Initially, you have to sell a lot of sizzle about the idea and how tangible it can be, and then start showing progress towards that as you're deploying that capital, and then being able to either re-raise or combine with another company. Historically, my experience has been ability to re-raise as we made operational progress with that capital and continue to see that vision through, where that vision now becomes a reality. That's been something that I've just found what I've loved to do. It's something that I think was embedded in me very, very young. I mean, I used to set up lemonade stands. I used to always like set up little businesses and kind of have a little bit of hustle to me. So I didn't choose those jobs where you have that stability, where you're kind of more looking at the overall landscape and choosing where to go. I like to choose an opportunity where you can see an industry that has a better way, and then going after that industry and really shaking it up. It's to me, it's a lot more potential work, as most people would say, or a little bit crazy maybe at times. But I really, really enjoy it, and I think the people around you tend to enjoy it as well.
Well, that's maybe a nice segue for us. You did step into the CFO office at Vendr in January of 2022. Tell us about Vendr. What does it do? What is this company about? What are its offerings?
Yeah, I mean, back to the core of mission critical companies and sort of disrupting how things are and the norms that you see today, and making a change for the better. What Vendr is trying to do is fix sales, and it's particularly around the software sales is where we're starting. And today, as you probably know, software sales, you as a consumer can go buy a house, which is your major purchase in your life. You can go buy a house faster than you can buy a software company at most companies. And what Vendr's looking to do is bring transparency to that overall market. So both procurement professionals, the users or the requesters of spend that want to absorb the software, as well as the sellers, have full transparency of what's going on, what software works, what doesn't work, to help buyers of software, particularly procurement, find, buy, and manage their technology stack. And so how Vendr started was, which I'm a 2-time customer of, they started with negotiation as a service, which is they sort of would say, what software would you like to buy? They would go off and they would understand, by working with suppliers over and over and over again, they would better understand how those suppliers would work. They would be able to navigate those suppliers very quickly through their sales cycle, help buyers navigate their procurement cycle and speed up the cycle time while also reducing the price. So you're saving time and you're saving money. I think one of the brilliant things that Vendr did, which was very innovative, because when most things that you buy don't have a straight ROI, they offer a guaranteed savings. And if you don't hit that guaranteed savings by using that service, they would give you your money back. And since I've been here, only 5 have actually, we need to return money out of all the hundreds and hundreds of companies we've been doing. The next phase we're going on is, and when I got here was, it was done as a managed service to collect the data. There was no like moat that you could build potentially. So they had to do it manually. When I got here and combined with Ryan New as their CEO, went out and bought Blissfully, which is a staff management platform, which allows you to see all the software within your company. That was the core piece of the platform and the product, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that we can combine data and we can combine our knowledge and expertise that sits in our SaaS consultants as well as our procurement professionals. So now you have a platform, you have data, and you have expertise. And that's a much more scalable way to help companies, and particularly procurement team, to get strategic so they can automate their processes and in a platform that users actually want to contribute and find, buy, and manage their software. They're able to have transparency of pricing. They're able to have transparency of commercial terms and what other people are doing in the community and what they're getting, so they can actually feel a lot more comfortable moving forward relatively quickly. And then the last piece is if they can do that on their own, or they can call us and do it with help. And that's been pretty powerful to make them sort of the hero versus a different software or a different managed service being the hero here.
So they can do it either way. I mean, is there do you give them any guidance as to how to make that decision? Or like if you see a company that wants to do it its own way and you have some level of skepticism for whatever reason?
Yeah, so there's a couple of motions we run, which is your procurement maturity, which is some people don't have a procurement team, or they do have a team. So we look at their processes, we look at their security reviews, or we look at their compliance, and we sort of educate based on what our community is doing. What we're just sharing is insights from the community about what everyone else is doing. Yeah. It's sort of powerful, it's customized, it's really relevant. The second piece is that as they're going through the negotiation or they want to purchase, we just let them, there's two ways you can do it. We can do it for you, which you can pass off to the service, and the service will go get that software for the right price, the right scope that you kind of, we ask you a bunch of questions that help guide the conversation, and we're able to navigate that well for you. The other piece is we give you a pretty good access to data and reporting that allows you to look at the price benchmarking, understand commercial term benchmarking, look at the negotiation strategy that you might want to apply with that certain supplier based on your particular situation. And then that kind of gives you the roadmap to follow. And if you feel like you have any questions, you can reach out to us and get some more advice, depending on what that report says, to help navigate each part of the way. So they can call us each step of the way and prepare each call, or they can call us and debrief after each step, or they can plug us in and say, you take it the rest of the way. I'm kind of done. I'd love for you to take it the rest of the way. So it's up to them. I kind of joke it's kind of the Burger King model of have it your way at this moment.
Jason, before we ask you about your lines of sight into the business, we always like to ask if you have an abbreviated sort of history of the capital structure, some of the history that's already behind this company as it grows. What would you share with us?
Yeah, so our Vendr did a Series A at the height, I would say, of the market, and it raised about $60 million. When I got here, it was sort of a couple months right after the height of the market. We raised a $150 million round. So it's a very well capitalized market in the sense of where we're going, which is negotiation as a service was the starting point of the industry. And the company is very well capitalized to take on that piece of the industry. What we're doing is we innovate ourselves, just like some of the other companies I've talked about. So beyond just the services, moving towards a platform piece, moving towards a procurement platform is really where we're going in combination of that expertise. And so we took on enough capital to kind of go after the procurement space, but then also work with sellers to help streamline their processes as well, because their processes are pretty broken. They can't see when a deal will close. They try to guess, sales tries to guess the whole way through. But combining both sides is sort of where our major piece of the vision is. To actually fix sales, you have to work on both sides. So we took down enough capital to be able to do that. The second thing is we took down enough capital because we sort of were guessing and happened to guess right that the market was going to turn in a very difficult way, and it has so far. And so we're going to be able to fund ourselves for many years and get on the other side of this macro environment.
So tell us about the numbers that you're looking at regularly and the metrics you're looking at regularly. Interestingly, we have this conversation with quite a few SaaS CFOs. We'd be curious from your end what you're looking at, what's important.
Yeah, I tend to look at, and this is more of my potential operational background. I look at inside out, and so what most finance team members might look at ARR and they look at net retention, they look at gross retention. I do look at those things. Those to me are the scoreboard, though, and so I spend time spinning up and looking at the input, and the input is your adoption healthy? Is your engagement healthy within your platform? Are the customers doing the right things that you want them to do within the space? And then do you feel like their time to value, and it's a continuous time to value? Are they consistently getting value out of what you're offering? And to me, if they are doing that really, really well, then the metrics usually show up in a great way. And so what I spent a lot of time on is what we call internally a success potential. And that success potential is your it's about technology. Do you absorb the technology in the right way? Do we have the right features and functionality? So functionality is another one. Does the customer have the competence, and do we have the competence to have a great conversation and to make sure that we have a great partnership, which is more skill? The next piece is resources. Do they have the willingness to put the resources, and do we have the right resources matched against the account based on what their goals are? And then the next element is expertise. So does our expertise, that when you call us for support, is our expertise holding up to what their expectations are and the expectations we set for them? The last piece, which is really important, is cultural. And the cultural aspects are, we have very specific cultural norms that we're trying to portray, which is leveling the playing field, which gets back to like fairness and transparency, but kindness as a service. We work really quickly, V for velocity, and we try to pursue truth. And the truth is, to fix sales or to fix market and have good efficiency and equilibrium, you got to pursue truth at all costs. And if people align to that, and then the last one's trust. If people align to that vision of build trust through transparency, essentially, there's some categories underneath which I just mentioned, then we have we're set up for a really good partnership together. And then there's a next step is desired outcomes, which is a component of what their goals are, but also how they want to experience getting that goal. So I think about it from a restaurant standpoint. You could order the steak and you could love the steak and it could be the best steak you ever cooked. But if you don't experience it in the right way, sometimes it's not success. And the same thing is in reverse, is it might not be as great of a steak, but if the experience was amazing, you still might go back and try another meal later. So we want both of those to work all the time. So when I look at success potential, desired outcomes, if we're doing those really, really well, then I usually see the metrics, the normal financial metrics, show up in really strong ways.
If we were to look at this organization, just in terms of people and what they do, wouldn't it resemble a professional service organization, or no? Would it compare it to something for us?
In the first couple of years, yes. Today, no. So I'll give you an example. When I first got here, majority of the organization, outside of its normal G&A functions, was over 90% working on the managed service. Today, it's about 50-50. So there's professional service team members that are still working on and helping organizations find, buy, and manage their software. But the other 50% of our organization at this point in time, again, excluding like the go-to-market and G&A functions, is our product and development. So we have over 100 product and development and engineers. So it's a pretty large investment that we made, and what we're building is basically a self-service platform that doesn't require a human in the loop, because we have all the data and all the expertise that we can now feed through it. But if people want to click the button and they want to do it for you option, we have that still available.
Just thinking of the organization and the people assets, have you made acquisitions? And I'm wondering, if you did make acquisitions, since you arrived, if you're more interested in the technology, buying intellectual property, or would the deal be talent driven, looking for people?
It's a combination of both. We did an acquisition right when I got here, which is Blissfully, which turned Vendr from a managed service into a product company. So they had a really great technology base. It took about 6 years to build it. And It was both buying that technology, but buying that engineering core. And those are equally as important. And those, from a cultural standpoint, ended up fitting pretty well with our company as well. So the people were absorbed within the company, and we've sort of scaled what happened to be almost 20 or so people to, like I said, that department's over 100 now. And that's only about 13 months in since we acquired that company. What we ended up doing with the company is, and the technologies, we sunsetted Vendr's technology. We sunsetted their technology because we knew where this vision was going, and it was very clear after 4 years working on it. And they spent 6 years, like I said, building up their SaaS management tool. We figured out where we really wanted to go and the soft spots in the market. So we sunsetted 2 platforms and really rebuilt a new platform that is able to take us many years into the future, as well as international, quickly. That was a bold move because we didn't release a lot of products and features throughout 2022 because we were spending all our time building this platform for our future state. We happened to have pretty good revenue growth, so we weren't under the pressure of shifting too quickly. Now that we have the platform and launched that, you're going to see feature sets and new products get launched every couple of weeks at this point.
Want to ask you a little bit about how you have structured your finance team. If you have learned a few things along the way, and finally, as you become a CFO, you're going to do things differently. You're going to, I don't know. But we're looking for ways that finance might be operating differently in sort of this data-driven world that's out there. I don't know. Anything?
Yeah, certainly. So I think you have to know yourself as the finance leader and wonder where your strengths are, where your areas that you're not as strong, and sort of, I think, also recognize what the company is going to require of you as the CFO, how much resources they're willing to put towards the finance department. So after analyzing those 3 things, we definitely wanted to build up a small, lean, but pretty good finance organization that can start building the blocks for, one, helping manage the company at its current size and into the future, but also starting to seed for multiple potential private or accessing in the let's say foreseeable future the public markets. And so for me, I didn't grow up in the accounting space. So one of the first things I did was went out and got a great assistant and controller that could help me on the accounting side. And I spend most of my time on the strategic or FP&A side. So once we were able to steady the ship on the accounting, because you have to get to the blocking, tackling, and that's just run the business things, as well as there's a strategic component of accounting, but you really just have to make sure that you keep the lights on. And so that was the first element. The second element is because of I think the role that I was going to be playing, and I moved from CFO to COO pretty quickly. I oversee portions of the operation, but also get quite heavily involved. So we brought in a VP of finance, an FP&A specialist, and analytics as well as underneath. And that combination tends to really understand what the business is doing, the temperature of it, where its weaknesses are, where its strengths are, so you can kind of help make good fact-based decisions to help build the company. At the same time that your accounting team is, continues to close the books in an efficient manner, understand that they're doing the right treatments for accounting, they're working through the various audits and different audit tiers that need to be sort of ready and in preparation to access the public markets. I think where I spend a little bit less time, at least at this stage, is on the treasury side, the tax side per se, in the sense of internal. We have good banks that are able to get good advice to build treasury policies and ensure what we were doing. We're doing in the right things, and we didn't get caught into what was SVB and other regional banking, because we sort of were staying ahead of those aspects. But on the tax side, I think tax planning is really critical to do up front. Vistaprint and later Cimpress learned that there's quite a bit of tax planning you can do from the very beginning that seeds the company to have a really good competitive advantage over the long term if you pay attention to it. And so I do spend a little bit of money working with various expertise to understand how to make sure as we're growing globally that we're doing it in a way that is also quite tax efficient, where the operations also meet with the tax planning piece of it.
Nice overview for us. Thank you for that. We wanted to move to our finance strategic moment question, which could have happened any time in the course of your career. We're just looking for one moment of insight that you experienced as a finance executive, led you to pursue an opportunity, avoid a risk. Anything come to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Mine was when DraftKings at that point in time, we were looking to merge with FanDuel. FanDuel was the number one, and we were sort of number two in the market for daily fantasy sports. At that time, it was right before the regulations were lifted to potentially legalize the gaming market across the U.S. And we were down in Washington presenting in front of the FTC why these two companies should merge. And at the time, Jason Robbins, CEO, we were presenting, and after that presentation, we just got this sense that it may not go through, given the level of questioning and what was going on. Now, we were very niche market, very small players, but we just got this sense that it might not happen. And both of us were merging because we were running out of cash. We were trying to be a stronger company because there was a much bigger market and competitive landscape to go deal with. And it felt like the best thing to do for both companies as well as investors, and particularly for the consumer. And so that aha moment was him and I left, we went and raised very quickly on some of the momentum we had operationally, as well as the rumors that legalized gambling may happen in the U.S. in a very short time frame. FanDuel did not. And the gut check about doing that ended up with FanDuel selling for about $556 million at that point in time, because when the FTC finally ruled, they said no, but at that point in time, it was too late for FanDuel to go raise. So they ran out of money and had to do a fire sale. We happened to raise based on the news of us potentially merging at the same time that the overturn may happen for the gaming market, which was opening up our opportunities. And so people definitely wanted to invest in that opportunity. And DraftKings ended up going public. We had to raise again, but ended up becoming a very strong pure play company that, depending on their market cap, is anywhere usually from like 10 billion to even, I think, upward during the COVID height of the market was 25 or $30 billion. So just that decision alone, to be able to understand what was going on in the capital markets, what was happening with the business, what was happening with a potential pending M&A, and making a quick judgment call to make sure that you are always in a strong state to run your business. That moment turned into DraftKings being what it is today, and what FanDuel is doing quite well under its umbrella. But those employees, as well as those investors, most of them got wiped out at that point in time.
CFOs and controllers, does expense management feel like a necessary evil? It's time to switch to Brex. Brex automates and accelerates spend management with easy-to-use corporate cards, travel, expense management, and bill pay, all on one AI-powered platform. Brex makes it easy to boost efficiency and compliance enterprise-wide and free up your managers, employees, and accounting team for higher impact work. Top companies from startups to enterprises are using Brex to automate manual work and transform their finance operations. We're talking DoorDash, Robinhood, Airtable, and countless other industry leaders. Ready to join them? Switch to AI-powered spend management at Brex.com. Oh, great moment to highlight for us. Thank you for that. We're going to jump now to our mentoring round, where we'll ask you several quick questions intended to inform and inspire future finance leaders. We want you to think back to the first 30 days, I believe, in this role. And if you could go back in time and just tell yourself something, again, this question clearly designed to help future finance leaders when they step into that role for the first time, what they wish they could tell themselves. What is it that you would share with yourself back in time?
What I constantly find that I need to share with myself is trust your gut. You're usually right and move quickly. I think most finance leaders, including myself, will look for more data, and probably you need 90% of the picture before you sort of make the call. And I think as I grow in my career, I need less and less information to make the judgment call, because your instincts tend to be pretty right. So what I would say is, time is the only thing you really can trade in life as well as in business. There's a lot of things you can trade, but that's the one thing you can never get back. So I would just lend people to think about trusting their gut. I mean, over their career, they've learned a lot. They do a lot of analysis, and they're quite good at probably what they do. So I would just trust your gut.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We always like to ask our guests to reflect a little bit on the personal side. We're wondering, Jason, if you have a personal habit, part of a daily routine that you could share, something that over time people have pointed out and said, he always does that. Whatever it might be. Anything come to mind when we ask for a personal habit or routine that you're known for?
Yeah, there's two things. One might not be repeatable for others. That's what I'm going to share too. Is I wake up extremely early in the morning. I'm up at 3:34, and I'm going through most things throughout the day to prepare the operations, what I'm seeing, what's going on. And so that's what most people know me for, is that I'm not sure when you sleep, but you don't. And I think it's kind of genetic thing where I don't need much sleep, like my father and my father before him. But that's certainly something that has led to a lot of success, because you're able to really spend some quiet time and think and make great decisions, and few of them, because you've spent some time thinking. I think the second thing that's more tangible is picking up the phone or stopping by someone and just seeing how they're doing and having a casual conversation, whether it be after a meeting or an email, or you can tell that something is either successful or something that maybe be bothering someone. So take that extra minute and make a call. It tends to go a long way. It builds a lot of trust throughout the organization. Just don't call the same people. Just, I would say, spread it around and really understand what's going on in the business. And so that has led to a lot of success, to really being on the ground floor. It's something I really believe in. In a non-remote world, you would, or I would, to kind of walk the floors and see what's going on in the business and take a moment and do that. I think as any executive, you get a real feel for what's happening on a day-to-day basis, and what you probably are not picking up that you might want to change and help the business grow a little bit further.
Nice. We always like to ask if you have a book selection for us. It doesn't have to be a business book. It might be something you just enjoy or escape with. Anything you have for us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one that I listen to a podcast, I like the All In podcast. It's a little bit biased because David Sachs sits on our board. But I think as a finance person that wants to be strategic, I think that's a relatively good podcast to listen to each week. It's really pretty relevant and what's happening on a week-to-week basis from a finance perspective. And I think those are generally good insights that you can kind of explore further and apply, or at least check that if you'd like to apply to your business today.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We're finally at our last question, which is where we ask you to look forward. We're wondering what your priorities are as CFO of Vendr for the next 12 months. Looking forward for that 12 months, what are your priorities as a CFO?
Our major priority from a business perspective is to get to escape velocity. So absorb the platform. The platform can handle massive amount of velocity of customers onboarding in a seamless way. That's the business priority. What that means from a finance perspective is that your whether it be backend or tooling or infrastructure, needs to be able to handle that type of volume, that you're able to understand what's going on very quickly and you're satisfying and there's no disruption from a customer perspective. The other two elements are keeping keeping pretty lean. And what that means is hyper-focused on what matters, helping people also grow their career, give them opportunities to work on new projects, but keeping lean so you're not getting distracted. And then we do believe that like a way to run the business is flatter is a little bit better. What tends to happen in these smaller companies is you end up getting a lot of hierarchy pretty quick as you're growing your young people that have taken you this far, but then you end up getting one person reports into another person that has maybe 3 direct reports, and it becomes a little messy. My overall aspect is that's the nomenclature of maybe growth. But it really isn't. It's all about building your skills, capabilities, marketability, and that can be done through different means, not just people management.
Excellent. Jason Quinn, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought
Thank you,
Leader.
Jack. It was a pleasure. Look forward to catching up next time as well.
Hello, Thought Leader listeners. As you have perhaps already heard or even seen, we're now featuring the career lessons and moments of strategic insight shared by our CFO guests as Thought Leader videos. You can now find these videos on our blog at cfothoughtleader.com and, of course, our newsletters, but also on LinkedIn. If you haven't already, please go ahead and follow our CFO Thought Leader LinkedIn company page, and you'll be certain not to miss a single Thought Leader video debut. CFO Thought Leader, the #1 thought leadership platform exclusively for and by CFOs. As always, thank you for listening.